Hi there, so we're going to now do some more analysis of the elevation data, and we're going to take it into another piece of software called Arcscene, which is a companion piece of software for ArcMap and Arc Catalog. And this gives us the ability to turn two-dimensional data into 3D and then do some clever things with it. So to access Arcscene, I need to go down to the Start menu here. And because I've been using it fairly regularly, it's on my start page. If not, I would have to go to all programs and then find it inside the ArcGIS folder, and then simply click on Arcscene and it will run the program. So once the software is loaded, we will see a fairly similar looking interface to ArcMap. And we're starting with a blank scene, so you'll see that some of these tools look fairly familiar, sort of standard tools along here. Again, adding data and table of contents down on the left here. We can access the catalogue as well. We can also run some of the Arc Toolbox. And we've got a whole suite of other tools here for moving around the data when it becomes three-dimensional, and then the standard zoom and pan tools that we have in ArcMap too. So that's the kind of main set of tools. If we pop over here, we can open the catalogue up as before and access any of our data that would be stored inside there. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to pop over into the geodatabase and look at the data we were working on previously. And I want the original data, so the unmodified elevation data, which has been downloaded directly from Digimap and then merged together into this single data set. So I'm going to just drag that in as we would do in ArcMap. The first thing you notice immediately is that the data has been displayed in a different way, different view. So it's given us this flat view, and currently the data is two-dimensional. And you'll also notice that by default the navigation tool is selected, which means we can then start to move around the data and interact with the data in quite a different way to how we do in ArcMap. But as you start to move onto that vertical horizontal plane, you notice that actually the data is completely flat at the moment. And because this data has elevations built into every pixel, or the elevation data, or the height built into every pixel, we can use this as the basis for turning this into a three-dimensional model of the land surface. It's actually quite a straightforward process too. The first thing we need to do is double click on the layer to bring up the layer properties, and we're going to be concentrating on these two tabs over here at the end. The first one we can look at is the base height, and you can notice here that it's currently set at no elevation values for the surface. So we're going to simply click here, this floating on a custom surface, and we're going to ask or tell the computer to pick the elevation data from that layer. So we're asking it, because we know the elevation data is in there, we're going to ask it to do that. We're also going to just pop over to the rendering page, and we're going to also push up the quality of the raster images to the highest setting, so the computer will render them in the highest resolution possible. And then I'm simply going to click OK, and the computer will now model that data in 3 dimensions, as we'll see in a second. So there we go. And of course we can still pan around it as we would have done previously, and you'll now see that the whole area is taken on this kind of three-dimensional view. And of course I can move in and out of the data too, so I can simply zoom in. So there we go, we get a better sort of representation of how it looks in 3 dimensions. Well, a couple of tools here. So we've got the flying tool, which gives us this little bird, so I could actually fly up this valley if I want to. So if I simply click and then move the mouse you'll notice that the whole image moves around. If I click again, it will start to fly, the bird will start to fly me through the image. And if I click again, it will speed up the flight. So you can see we're actually now flying through that valley. And if I click again, it will get faster. So you can get a real sense of moving through the data in a much more sort of visual, three-dimensional way. And I can speed up again and it'll get much faster. If I want to stop using that tool, I simply press escape and it will stop the bird flying, and I can then go back to the layer and right click and zoom to layer to set me back up to where I started again. You've got various other tools up here as well, so you can center on a target by clicking and that will center the map on a particular location, as you see. Maybe there, which is quite straightforward. The next tool here is zoom to a target, so again I can say I want to zoom, say, to the top of the hill, and the map will zoom me to that viewpoint. Again, maybe I want to zoom to over there, and again it will zoom me to that particular viewpoint. And I can always, if I want to get back to the full extent of the data, I can either click the full extent up there, or I can right click and say zoom to layer. They will both do the same thing. The final tool here is, again, we can set a position to observe from. So I say I might want to look from here. The computer will automatically move me around and give me a viewpoint from that location. Again, I can go back to full extent if I'm not sure that's where I want to be, or I can try clicking from there. And again, the computer has moved me to that particular viewpoint. So it's quite powerful 3D modelling software we've got here. There's a few other things we can do. Obviously it allows us to overlay other data on top of this 3D model, so I'm just going to grab the OS map for this area and we're going to overlay that on the top as well. So I'm just going to go and grab that one. So let's just grab the again, I could just drop it in as if I was in ArcMap, the exact same way. I'm just going to quickly zoom out to the full extent. So you can see I've got the whole OS map for the area. But at the moment it's again still in one dimension, or sorry, two dimensions. The OS map is not currently draped over the 3D view. So there's a couple of things we need to do to make that happen. First thing we need to do is again go to layer properties for the map itself, the OS map. So I'm going to click on that one. And again I need to go back to base heights and I need to set this floating. And we want it to be floating on the existing three-dimensional layer, which is the one below. So we need to float it on the topo layer. I'm also going to push the resolution up to the highest setting, and I'm going to click OK. So it's now turned the OS map into a three-dimensional model as well, but we don't actually need the Apple Topo map anymore, so we can switch that off, and there we go. So now we're just left with the OS map draped over the 3D model, and of course we can now zoom and pan around that map, and again we can use this flying bird to fly through the landscape. If I can control it. You are really best using a mouse to do this rather than your mouse pad. So I'm now moving very slowly through the data. And each time I left click it will get faster, as you can see. So you start to get a bit of a sense of how this data is modelled in a three-dimensional world. So I'm just going to stop there. A couple of other things. We can go up here to the scene layers, and we've got this one here. We can actually exaggerate the vertical slightly to make it a slightly more visually dramatic scene. I'm just going to exaggerate it by 2, and then I'm going to click OK. That's probably actually too much, but what you'll see if I zoom out to the extent that it's made the whole map quite a lot more dramatic. So you can really get now a sense of flying through this particular landscape. We might just pop that down to something, maybe just 1.5, and then click OK, and then we're going to zoom to the extent. So you can see a fairly three-dimensional view of the hills here. Again, if we zoom in more, we get a better feel for that in the 3 dimensions. So you can pan and move around the data like so. So that's how we model data in 3 dimensions using Arcscene.